Hello, Tom here, and I today am going to try explain modding, this glorious feature that I've been talking about for ages but not been able to show to anybody. What you can see here is the black hole mission. So as you can see in the other video where I try to escape a black hole and it really tears me a new one, this is the code that actually does this. So we're going to start off and I'm basically going to show you kind of line by line, going over quite briefly what it all does. So modding works by just creating a class in C#, in Visual Studio, building it into a DLL, plopping that DLL then inside the plugins folder, and that's it. That's literally it. I will show you here how it actually works. So you have a class called black hole, and it inherits the Marshall by reference object, but it does three implementations of interfaces: an iMission, iDataStore, and an iExtraShips. The extra ships and the data store are kind of optional, but the iMission makes it a mission, and iCommand obviously makes it a command. So you can see here, this is aimed kind of at coders who really want to play around, but anyone else that really just wants to go into programming, because it is one of the funnest things you can really do. There are three global variables: create a thread, the actions, and a boolean to check whether or not it should be running or not. Because it's a mission, it has to run a thread to keep it updating, so at least it can run as fast as possible. One of the things the iMission has is called onShip first ship arrives. So that's when we warp into the mission, or when the game starts up and everything, what's going to happen. So we set the actions to do something, we then move the ship, because ships come in, and they normally come in at 00, but our black hole's at 00, so we're going to move it from this. So we move the ship, and you can see it calls this function down here, where it says ship.centerPosition, so that's the center of the ship, the center of mass, or position of the ship. We do the center position. Center position is actually different to ship.centerOfMass. Center of mass is just a get where you can find out where the center of mass is. Center position is the position in space of the center of mass. So we set it to equal SoRandom. SoRandom actually stands for Space Opera Random. Space Opera is the custom name of the engine I use. Wrote. And it does random position donut. So it basically says anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 squares away from the black hole. Now square is actually 20. I know it sounds weird, but it is for some reason 20. So back here again, we then start up the attraction thread. Now the attraction thread's great fun. So it does three things: where the position of the black hole is, where the damage distance is, 250 powered, we'll come to that later, and the maximum amount of damage you can do 100. So you throw the whole thing in a try statement, because try statements are fun. And then we basically just while running, so just keep running until running equals false. That's why we set it to true earlier. Then another try statement, because try statements are good and healthy. I know they're slow. I know, but they are good in missions, for example, just to keep the whole game running better. So we work out then, for every ship in the instance, so normally there'll be one or two, but hell, you might have a full-scale battle going on, and that'd be pretty funny, actually, to watch in the next video. But we work out the vector between the black hole's position and the ship.center position. Everything uses something called a position object, which is basically like a vector 2 to anyone else that's done coding before, or just a vector to anyone that's done maths before. But I've completely set up the operators and everything to make it all nice and everything. We will then work out the distance, which is the length squared. Position has something called length squared rather than length, just to make calculations faster, no square root required. So we work out the black hole damage distance, and because we're using length squared rather than length, we compare it to the power of 250 of 2. If it is beneath that, we tell the ship that it's crumbling due to the black hole, so that'll put some text on the client. When he actually starts hitting it, it'll be like, your ship's crumbling from black hole, so you'll see that and it's all fun. Work out the damage factor using a 1 minus vector divide by thing time Mach distance, and the location is, here I kind of cheated. I wanted to make it so the black hole kind of draw a line from the black hole to the ship, and then kind of damage upwards, but the random actually worked a lot better when it came down to just true chaos across the ship. So it's the center of mass of the ship plus a random position, a donut between the 0 and the proximity radius, which is just a kind of good understanding of how big a ship is. It's a giant sphere around the ship, depending on how many tiles out it's been undone. Then to position I. Position I is an integer, which creates a position kind of, but non-floating, so it's relative to the actual tiles in the ship. And then just do ship.damage in the location and the damage factor. And that is how to then damage the ships when they go less than the distance to the black hole. And then the last bit is very simple, ship.addForce, the vector.always. Because that then drags the ships towards the black hole, because our vector is black hole minus ship position, so that's towards the black hole. Outside that, after we've done that for every little ship, we then just add a particle effect, and that creates the kind of nice wavy effect. People were saying that it could have been done a little bit better, so go to town and rewrite that when the full game comes out. You'll Great fun. You can see things like the number of particles it does, the position, where they do it, angle, arc deviation. Again, great fun you can have there. And then the exception catching, so it just says, hey, crashed. The action.log then pumps that into the actual server log, so that's great fun. And returns, and the thread.sleep, that just then gets the thread to run, so this basically runs. If that's sleeping 10 milliseconds, then that basically happens about maybe 100 times a second, maybe 10 times a second. Bad, my mouth's in the crunch, sorry. Another catch, that's the thread abort exception, so if I called thread.abort somewhere else, that would then be fired. On load is another thing, that's actually fired by the iData store. So this is whenever the server saves or loads. So it lets missions do things depending on that. So some missions might want to save their current kind of state into the plugins folder. Others might want to do other things. The reason I've done this interfaces model is to actually make it so there's two folders. There's the unsandboxed plugins and there's the sandbox plugins. The sandbox plugins, just called plugins in the folder layout, they are actually safe. As in, you could take someone who you didn't trust at all, you could take his DLL, put them in there, and nothing should happen. I can't promise you, because to be honest, there are probably some hacker out there who could do it. But, for all I'm doing it is running in a sandbox, it should be secure, he shouldn't be able to delete your entire hard drive. That's all I'm kind of trying to promise there. And that then means I have to use this whole interface thing, and it's quite a lot slower, but it's worth it to have that kind of sense of security about the whole thing. Then one of my missions actually does test that, and it has worked up to now even. If they're put in the unsandboxed plugins folder, then all bets are off. Like then they can then they can do anything. But I do believe in modders, and I do believe that they are great people. I've always believed in open source modding because that's always fun. And then they have huge speed bonuses, and it's also the only way to create game objects. So that's going to have to become part of the community, whatever there. But on this side of things, so this is actually run whenever the server loads. So this sets the actions to equals actions, because actions is actually one of those things that we really need to control a lot of things. It's how we create black holes, it's particle effects, it's how we do the logging, it's how we create a lot of things. And then we also, if there's any ships inside the instance, we then kick off the attraction thread. Otherwise that's fired when the first ship arrives. The onSave just sets the running to equal false, which would, if that's this.running equals false, it's fired, then the while loop will fail the next time round, and that will then exit the thread, so nice and safe. On additional ship arrives, so that's basically if one ship arrives, it fires the on first ship arrives command. So that just does those three commands. And on the last ship that leaves, it then set that to false, the same as the other one. But, so on any extra ships arriving after the first one, because some missions don't actually need to do anything for the second one. You know, an asteroid belt, for example, doesn't need to do anything when a second ship arrives. But for this one, when a second ship arrives, it moves that ship then to also another random position within 2,000 or 3,000. So, you know, then everyone's kind of like a similar distance from the black hole, so they all kind of hit the same panic at the same time. Whenever an additional ship leaves, well, you know, there's nothing really to do there. There's still going to be one ship left, because that's what the rules of extra ships is. And so when the last ship leaves, it sets running to equal false, which then kills the thread. So, you know, real nice, simple code here. That's it, basically. You can see on the right-hand side all the other kind of different ones I have. I will show a command next, because commands are also fun. They're really, really simple to throw together, and you saw in how this is maybe only about 100, 200 lines of code, and it's really simple and gets a really, really cool effect. One of my best videos actually came from just this simple line of code, and this is actually the real chunky bit. That's the bit that does stuff. But I'll leave it at that today, and I'll show a command video tomorrow, and the day after I think I'll show you how to create a game object, because that is the real fun one. I got a friend of mine currently trying his best to break the system as much as possible, and that's really fun to watch. But I can't wait to see you guys trying to make the craziest. Probably, I'm betting one of you is going to create a black hole generator. And I can't wait for the chaos that's going to create. Oh, it's going to create so many bugs. Whatever. Okay, thank you. I'll see you all tomorrow then. Okay, bye.